everyone, my name is Angel U. Ventura. Now, let's talk about the formative assessment. So, familiar naman kayo kung ano yung formative assessment kasi prelim pa lang natakal na natin ito kung ano yung formative assessment. So, ano nga ulit yung formative assessment kung natatanda nyo pa? Tama. Yung formative assessment, ginagawa ito para i-monitor and i-evaluate the student learning progress during the lesson or the discussion. Dito, tinitignan kung nakakasunod or naiintindihan ng mga estudyante yung tinuturo mo during the class. So, ginagamit rin ang formative assessment to identify areas where the student may need more help. Hindi yung turo ka ng turo, salita ka ng salita dyan sa harap, pero hindi mo alam, hindi ka na pala naiintindihan o nasusundan ng mga estudyante mo. What are you talking about? So, as a future teacher, let us learn some techniques on how to do a formative assessment to improve our teaching quality. Here are some techniques given by Fisher and Frey 2007 that teachers can use while teaching to check on student understanding. So, the first technique given by Fisher and Frey 2007 is the response cards. So, response cards, these are either pre-printed or write-on cards. Pre-printed cards have response on them such as yes or no. So, once na nagtanong si teacher during the class, maaari nilang itaas yung printed card as response to answer the question of the teacher. So, dito sa pre-printed card, ang pwede lang isagot ng mga students ay sa tanong ni teacher ay yes or no. Next is write-on cards. Write-on cards allow student to indicate their responses in real time. Dito naman, inaalaw ni teacher si student na magsulat or sumagot through writing to share their idea and thoughts. So, once na nagtanong si teacher, kinakailangan ilalagay sa write-on cards or sa blank paper ni student yung sagot niya base dun sa tinanong ni teacher. So, yung sa write-on cards from the word itself is through writing. The second technique given by Frey and Fisher 2007 is the hand signal. So, ang hand signal ay may tatlong paraan na maaring maging response sa mga student kapag nagtatanong si teacher during the class discussion or the lesson. So, thumbs up, it means the student understand and can explain it what is the teacher asking. Thumb sideway, it means the student not completely sure about what is the teacher discussed during the class or what is the lesson all about. So, thumbs down, it means the student don't understand what is the teacher discussed during the class. So, itong techniques na ito, dito malalaman kung ang mga estudyante ay nakakasunod sa discussion ni teacher. So, now let's talk about the last technique given by Fisher and Frey 2007. The last technique is the games. Game-based learning and gamified instruction are two emerging teaching learning practices to drive learning. Game-based learning makes use of a game of any kind to realize a learning outcomes. So, ang games pala ay pwede rin palang gamitin para i-check yung student kung nakakasunod or nakakasunod ba sila sa discussion. So, may iba't ibang uri ng games o laro na pwedeng isagawa during the discussion or the formative assessment. So, gumagamit ng laro para maging exciting ang pagkatuto ng mga estudyante at hindi maging boring ang klase at syempre ang mga estudyante. At kapag gumagamit ng games during the class mas nagiging mas inganyo ang kanilang pagkatuto gamit ang laro para i-check yung understanding ng estudyante. So, ang technique na ito ay nadidevelop rin nila ang kanilang critical thinking. Also, they learn a new skills and they learn how to collaborate or participate with the others. So, maraming example ang games o laro na maaari rin nating gamitin kapag tayo ay nagtuturo na. So, now let's talk about the self-assessment. Self-assessment, an emerging trend in formative assessment, empowers students to take initiative and actively engage in their own learning, aligning with the principle of learner agency. Through self-evaluation, self-regulated learners track their progress towards personal learning outcomes and determine if they have achieved their goals. Actively involving students in assessing their own learning boosts their confidence, motivation, and sense of ownership in the learning process. By Davis and McGowan, 2007. So these are the example of the self-assessment, goal setting, and progress tracking. Students set learning goals and track their progress towards achieving them. Example, a student create a checklist of skills to master before a test and regularly marks off items they have successfully learned. So, second example is the reflective journal or learning logs. Students write about what they learn, how they learn it, and areas they found challenging. So, example, after a science experiment, a student writes a journal entry reflecting on their procedure, the result, and what they could do differently next time. So, ang self-assessment ay isang paraan sa formative assessment kung saan ang mga mag-aaral ay sinusuri ang kanilang sariling pagkatuto. Nakabatay ito sa konsepto ng learner agency na nangangahulugang ang mag-aaral ang gumagawa ng hakbang at inisyatibo para matuto, hindi lamang umaasa sa kanilang mga guro. Ang self-assessment sa konteksto ng formative assessment ay isang mahalagang proseso kung saan binibigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga mag-aaral na suriin ang kanilang sariling pagkatuto at pagganap habang nasa kalagitnaan ng kanilang pag-aaral. Ang self-assessment din ay layunin nito na matulungan silang maunawaan ang kanilang mga kalakasan, kahinaan at mga aspeto ng kailangan paunlarin. Sa pamamagitan ng self-assessment, natututo ang mga mag-aaral na magtakda ng kanilang sariling layunin, maunawaan ang pamantayan ng tagumpay, at gumawa ng mga estrahiya upang mapabuti ang kanilang pagkatuto. Halimbawa, maaring magsagawa ang isang mag-aaral ng self-assessment gamit ang rubrics upang suriin kung gaano kalapit ang kanyang sagot sa mga inaasahang pamantayan. Sa formative assessment, ang self-assessment ay isang epektibong paraan upang maging aktibo at responsable ang mga mag-aaral sa kanilang sariling pagkatuto na nagdudulot ng mas mataas na antas na kritikal na pag-iisip at pagsasarili.
So good day everyone, I am Candice Nicole Cristobal. So we will proceed to the scoring rubrics and formative assessment. In formative assessment, teachers give feedback. These feedbacks are made more specific when they are based on rubrics which enumerate the criteria and describe the expected student performance, process, and product. Scoring rubrics, especially analytic rubrics, are therefore a good framework for feedback by Brookhart in the year 2013. So analytic rubrics are great help to students in assessing their own progress. So do you have idea what is formative assessment? So yes, tama. Formative assessment is ongoing process where teachers evaluate students' learning and provide feedback to help them improve, unlike summative assessments which evaluate final learning outcomes. So formative assessment aim to guide learning during the process. How about scoring rubrics? Do you have idea what it is? So scoring rubric is a tool to use to evaluate student performance against a set of predefined criteria. It breaks down tasks or skills into various components and assigns specific performance level for each component. So in scoring rubrics, there are two main types. The first one is holistic rubrics. Provide a single score based on an overall impression of the student's performance. So the second one is analytic rubrics. Break performance down into multiple criteria, each with its own score. So that's why Brookhart said analytic rubrics are great help to students in assessing their own progress. Kasi pagka holistic, iisa lang parang overall score na yun. Pero pagka analytic, which is divided yung mga pag-i-score niya. So we have three benefits of analytic rubrics by Brookhart in the year 2013. First is detailed feedback. So as a teacher, we can target specific areas of strength and weaknesses. Second is learning ownership, so that the student become more engaged in their learning process as they can track their progress against clear, measurable criteria. Lastly is guidance for improvement, because rubric serve as a roadmap for students to follow their improve their skills and performance incrementally. So next, we have additional formative assessment strategies. Below are formative assessment strategies from Watanabe's book on mindful assessment, the 5 essential fluencies of innovative learning in the year 2016 for you or we to try out. So first is round-robin charts. Teacher passes charts among group to assess understanding. Each group of 4 or 5 students begin with a chart and some markers. The group records an answer to an open-ended question. They can also share the knowledge they can have on the topic covered in class. Once the student finish the chart, they pass it on to the next group. When every group has worked on every chart, responses are discussed as a class. The purpose of this is to encourage collaboration and knowledge sharing, provide teachers with insights into students' understanding across different groups, and to promote discussion and reflective on varying perspective. Second is questioning strategies. So questioning strategies may be used with individuals, small groups, or the entire class. Effective formative assessment strategies involve asking students to answer higher order questions such as why and how. With the students' answer, teachers discerns the level and extent of the students' understanding. So the purpose of this one is to evaluate critical thinking and depth of understanding. So we can help the teachers. Third is three-way summaries. A student can work in group or individually. In response to a question or topic inquiry, they write 3 different summaries. First is 10 to 15 word long, and second is 30 to 50 words long, and lastly is 75 to 100 words long. The purpose of this one is to help the students synthesize and distill information at varying levels of complexity. So, it can encourage concise communication, especially using modern platforms. And it aids in the development of summary and analytic skills. Fourth is think, pair, share. The teacher asks a question and students write down their answers. The students are then placed in pair to discuss their responses. Teacher moves around the classroom and listen to various discussion. Then they let them share their responses as a pair to the class. So here in example pictures it says here think. Spend time thinking by yourself first. Second, pair. Talk with a partner or your table group and take time starting your ideas. Third is share. Share your collaborative thoughts with the whole class. So the purpose of this one is to promote active participation and collaborative learning. And it allows students to refine their ideas through discussion. And it provides the teacher with immediate feedback on student understanding. And lastly, the fifth one is 3, 2, 1 countdown. Teacher requires student to respond to 3 separate statements at the end of the lesson. So we have example here in the picture. So 3 things you didn't know. 2 things that you surprise you about this topic. 1 is thing you want to start doing what you have learned. So teacher can ask other question or ask a student to write questions about the topic they want to ask. So the purpose of this one is to encourage reflection on new learning and personal insights. And second is help students identify the retained key takeaways and to provide feedback to the teacher about what resonated students and any questions.
Hello everyone, I am Eunice Miranda. Today I will be discussing the vital topic of grading and reporting in education. This process serves as a terminal stage in evaluating a students' learning journey. following assessment and measurement. These steps provide numerical aids that guide decisions in evaluating student performance. Function of grading and reporting. Enhancing student learning. This can be done through clear objectives showing of their strengths and weaknesses, enhancing student motivation. Grading helps students understand their strengths and weaknesses, motivating them to improve. For example, a teacher provides feedback on student essay, highlight their creativity while suggesting improvement in grammar. Reports to parents and guardians. Grades keep parents informed about their child's academic progress. For example, a report card shows grades and comments like excellent in mathematics but needs improvement in science, helping parents support their child. Administrative and guidance use. Grades are used for discussion like promotions, honors, and extracurricular eligibility. For example, a student high grades qualify them for academic honors or allow them to join a school sports team. Types of grading and reporting system. Traditional letter grade system. Students are graded with letter like A, B, or C. For example, A student received a B in history, indicating very satisfactory performance. Pass or failed system. A student performance is marked as pass or failed after meeting or missing requirements competency. For example, a practical exam result shows pass reflecting mastery of a skills. Letters to parents. Written feedback supplements grade but can be misinterpreted. For example, a letter states your child shows great potential in science but needs more participation in class discussion. Portfolios, a collection of student works demonstrate progress over time. For example, a portfolio includes essays, projects, and tests that show a student improvement throughout the semester. Parent-teacher conference, a meeting where the teacher and parent discuss student progress, strength, and areas for improvement. For example, a teacher and one's parent meet to review his progress. The teacher highlights his strengths in science and suggests extra help in math, while the parents agree to support him at home. Development of grading and reporting system based on clear objectives. Grading should align with specific learning goals. For example, students are graded on written a persuasive essay with proper structure and argument.
I am Vanessa Alvarez and I will continue to discuss the development of grading and reporting system. Consistent with the school standards, it should not oppose the school standards already set. Third, based on adequate assessment, it should be easily verifiable through adequate systems of measurement and testing methods. Fourth, based on right level of detail, it should be detailed to be diagnostic but compact to be practical, not too time-consuming to prepare and use, understandable to users, and easily summarized for school record purposes. Fifth, provide for parent-teacher conference as needs. Guidelines for effective grading. Describe grading procedures to students at the beginning of instruction. Clarify that course grade will be based on achievement only. It does not cover effort and potential of students. Explain how other factors, effort, work, habits. Obtain valid evidences like exam, quizzes, and assignments. Prevent cheating. Return and review all test results. Properly weight the various types of achievements included in the grade. Do not lower an achievement grade for tardiness, weak effort, or misbehavior. Lastly, be fair, avoid bias when in doubt. Review the evidence. If still in doubt, give the higher grade. Next are the guidelines for conducting conferences. Guidelines for conducting conferences. First, make plans agenda. Second, start and maintain a positive focus by presenting students strong points first movements. Improvements of students' work could be emphasized. Third, encourage parents to participate and share information. Here, teachers should be willing to listen and to answer questions. Fourth, plan actions cooperatively. Fifth, end with a positive comment. Sixth, use good human relations skills. What is grading system in K-12? Grading system K-12 program containing NDepEd Order Number 31 Series 2013. Students' attainment of standard in terms of content and performance. K-12 grading system is a non-numeric equivalent value. So we have the assessment and rating of learning outcomes. In a holistic process with emphasis on the formative or developmental purpose of quality assuring the students' learning, it is also standards-based as it seeks to ensure that teachers will teach to the standards and students will aim to meet or even to exceed the standards. We have 4 levels of assessment and percentage. Levels of proficiency. The level of proficiency at which the student is performing shall be based on a numerical value which is arrived at after summing up the results of the student's performance. On the various levels of assessment, the numerical values are as follows.
Good day everyone! I am Cheryl Biquinanas and today ay meron tayong tatalakayin paksa. Ngunit bago ko sabihin kung ano ito, ay nais ko munang magbigay ng maikling introduction sa araw-araw na ating ginagawa. Hindi natin maiiwasan na tumingin sa salamin. At habang tumitingin tayo sa salamin, marami tayong naiisip. Kunwari na lang sa mga babae, ay parang hindi pantay yung kilay ko. O parang masyadong maputing foundation ko. Sa mga lalaki naman ay mapapaisip sila kung parang magulo yung buhok ko, diba? So, ngayon nagkakaroon ng reflection or reflective. At kapag araw-araw natin itong ginagawa, nagiging practice na ito. Kaya naman ang aking topic ngayon ay tungkol sa reflective practice using assessment data. So ano nga ba ang reflective practice? Reflective practice is in its simplest form, thinking about or reflecting on what you do. It is closely linked to the concept of learning from experience, in that you think about what you did and what happened and decide from what you would do differently next time. So kapag nagkakaroon ng reflection, iniisip natin kung ano ba yung nangyari, ano ba yung ginawa natin, ano ba yung gagawin pa natin sa susunod para mas mag-improve pa tayo. Yun yung tinatawag natin reflective practice. And it asserts that experience alone does not necessarily lead to learning, but that it is a reflection on what one has experienced that leads to learning and personal growth. So kapag naka-experience tayo ng mga bagay-bagay, hindi tayo agad-agad natututo. Pero kapag nag-isip tayo ng mabuti o kapag nagkaroon tayo ng reflection sa ating ginawa, doon tayo mas natututo. Doon natin naiisip kung ano ba yung mga ginawa natin. Ano ba yung tamang gawin sa susunod pa. Ang mga example ng mga reflective practice ay unang-una na dyan, self-questioning. So ito kapag tinatanungin mo yung sarili mo, yun yung simplest form ng reflection. Sunod naman ay experimenting with new ideas, discussing with colleagues or students, keeping a learning journal, evaluating lessons, making observations, and shared planning. And para sa additional na information, alam nyo ba na si John Dewey and Donald Scott are two influential figures who contributed to the idea of reflective practice. So kilala naman natin si John Dewey na siya yung nagsabi ng learning by doing or learning through experience. Kaya naman sabi niya, si John Dewey ang philosopher and educator who believed that reflection is important for creating meaning and relevancy, which is naglilid ito sa growth and change. It describes reflection as active, persistent and careful consideration of beliefs and knowledge. Dewey's work and SCON is considered the origin of the fundamental theories and models of reflection and reflective practice. Sunod naman dyan si Donald Scon. Nagsabi siya na ang reflective practice is an important factor for improving professional activity. So, importante raw ito, lalong-lalo na sa mga professional activity. Ano-ano ba yung mga professional activity? Of course, masasabi natin professional ang pagtuturo or teaching. Kaya naman importante na magkaroon ng reflection or reflective practice sa ating pagtuturong ginagawa. We presented a model of reflective practice that aims to capture intuitive knowledge that is cultivated through experience. So, pareho sila ni John Dewey na naniniwala na makakultivate natin yung knowledge through experience and reflection. Nagbigay si Donald Scon ng dalawang model. Ito ay tinatawag na reflection in action and reflection on action. Ang reflection in action, yun yung quick thinking at yung reaction na nangyayari kapag meron tayong ginagawa. So, yung walang isip-isip kung ano talaga yung naisip natin and kung ano yung mabilisan nating naisip at saka yung reaction natin, yun na yun. Habang reflection and action naman, yun yung nag-o-occur outside the classroom when you consider the situation again. So, pwede natin ihalin tulad ito, yung reflection and action sa formative assessment kasi during ito Tapos, reflection and action is summative assessment kasi after naman ito. So, example na dyan, kunwari tayo bilang estudyante, merong surprise recitation si teacher tapos hindi tayo nakapag-isip mabuti. Bigla na lang tinawag yung pangalan natin. Kunwari ako, tinanong ako, what is the meaning of assessment? So, mapapaisip ako, sabihin ko lang, examples of assessment are multiple choice, true or false, kasi yun lang yung mabilisan kong naisip. Yun lang yung reaction ko kasi tinawag ako bigla. Pero, so yun yung tinatawag natin reflection in action. Pero, ang tinatawag naman natin reflection in action, pagkalabas natin ng classroom, mapapaisip tayo na, ay parang kulang yung sinabi ko. Ay parang dapat sinabi ko yung meaning, hindi yung example. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na reflection on action. Susunod naman dyan ay ang General Supervisory Program Procedure. So, ito yung mga procedure ng pagsusupervise, di ba? So, sa high school na ranasan natin yun, biglang may papasok sa classroom, tapos is-supervise nila yung teacher. So, meron silang procedure dyan. Una na ang start up, build up, at ang panghuli ay closure or move on. So, sa startup, una nilang ina-establish yung purpose ng supervisory activity. Bakit ba nila sinusupervise si teacher? So, yun yung purpose nila. Pangalawa naman ay build up. So, specifies the supervisory activities that may occur. So, dito sinasabi kung ano ba yung mga aktibidad na pwedeng mangyari during yung pagsusupervise nila. Tapos sunod naman, closure or move on, nagpo-provide ng temporary pause to conclude the specific support intervention activity. So, ano ba yung mga support intervention activity? So, dito naman tayo sa instructional supervision support intervention strategies. So, unang-una na dyan ay study group. The study group of teachers interested in collegial study and action such as curriculum design and instructional motivation. So, study group, ito yung binubuo ng mga teacher. Grupo sila na nag-i-study para mas ma-improve nila yung mga curriculum design, yung mga instructional materials, or motivation na pwede nilang gawin. Sunod naman dyan ay action research. The teacher-researcher engages in research to address a problem closely connected to his or her work. So, ito naman yung mga ginagawa ng mga teacher kapag kunwari meron silang na-encounter na problema. Gumagawa sila ng action research para magkaroon ng action, para magkaroon ng kalinawan at magkaroon ng strategiya sa mga maling ito. So, example na lang, nahihirapan si teacher i-assess yung authenticity ng gawa ng kanyang mga estudyante kasi laganap na ngayon yung paggamit ng AI. So, pwedeng gawa niya ito na action research para malaman kung ano yung mga alternative o ano yung mga estratehiya na pwede niyang ibigay para maiwasan ito. Sunod naman dyan ay peer teaching. It is a professional development strategy that enables teacher to consult with one another, discuss and share teaching practices. So ito naman ay mga grupo rin ng teacher or mga grupo ng mga teacher. Tapos nagtatanungan sila kung ano yung mga strategiya. Nag-share sila kung ano yung mga teaching practices nila na pwede rin nilang gayahin upang mas mag-improve sila. Sunod naman dyan ay mentoring. Ito yung supervisory procedure where the supervisor, school head, master teacher, or a teacher who is more skilled helps or guide another teacher. So, ito naman yung mga nakatataas o mas marami ng alam, mas marami ng experience, mas marami ng skills. Sila yung nagga-guide sa mga baguhan pa lamang. Sunod naman dyan ay conferencing. It is a conference between a school head and the teacher after classroom supervision. So, after nang i-supervise yung teacher, nagkakaroon ng conferencing para sabihin kung ano ba yung mga dapat i-improve. And last ay yung tinatawag nating walkthrough. It is a brief visit to classrooms throughout the schools designed to collect data that can help members to continually improve their teaching. So, ayun nga, yung sabi ko rin kanina, noong high school tayo, laging mayroong supervisor or mga school head nag-o-observe sila sa mga teacher. Pwede rin sa mga student teacher, di ba? Nag-o-observe sa kanila yung mga teachers, school head, yun yung tinatawag nating walkthrough, yung kung saan bumibisita sila sa school para makapag-kolekta sila ng data na pwede nilang gawin, ay pwede nilang gamitin upang ma-improve pa yung quality of teaching ng mga teacher.
Good day everyone, my name is Dexy. Ngayon, dumako naman tayo sa using learner attainment data, a measure of teaching effectiveness. So sabi dito, which can serve as sources of data that reveals learners' attainment of learning outcomes that ultimately reflect teachers' teaching effectiveness. So dito natin makikita kung ano ang mapagkukunan ng datos ang maaari nating gamitin upang ipakita kung nakamit ba ng mag-aaral ang kanilang learning objectives at nagre-reflect din ito kung ang isang guro ba ay epektibo sa kanyang pagtuturo. Sabi nga dito, di ba? Learners' attainment data serve as a measure of teacher teaching effectiveness. So they can be analyzed to monitor and evaluate learners' progress and achievement. So they are the result of effective teaching. Now, let us take a look at the different documents that teacher can use to monitor learners' performance. Una dito ay ang Daily Lesson Log or DLL for a week. So the DLL shows the lesson for each day with the index of mastery computed accurately. So ginagamit ito ng mga guro bilang maging gabay sa kanilang pagtuturo at upang matukoy kung yung mga mag-aaral ba ay handa ng mag-proceed sa kanilang susunod na aralin o kung kailangan pa ba nila ng karagdagang gawain para sa revision. Sabi dito, the index of mastery contains the learner attainment data that measure the learner's mastery level of competency. So bukod dito, maaaring gamitin ng guro ang data na ito upang baguhin o ayusin ang kanilang pamamaraan ng kanilang pagtuturo upang matugunan kung ano ba yung mga needs ng kanilang mga students. Ito po yung halimbawa ng daily lesson log. Kung titignan po natin, parang may pagka-similarity po siya talaga sa lesson plan. So, yung daily lesson log po ay simple at nakafocus sa daily execution ng aralin. Samantalang po yung lesson plan ay mas kumpleto at ginagamit para sa masinsinang pagpaplano ng pagtuturo. So, yung LP po, karaniwang ginagamit sa long-term planning na pagsusuri ng teaching strategies. So, this is another document that teachers use to monitor and evaluate the learner's progress and achievement. Pangalawa po dito ay yung Electronic Class Record or ECR. So this is another document that teacher used to monitor and evaluate the learner's progress and achievement. So kasama po dito yung grading sheet at buod ng marka kada quarter na nagpapahintulot sa mga guro na masusing masubaybayan ang datos ng achievement ng mga mag-aaral sa bawat check na asignatura. Pangatlo naman dito ay ang progress chart. So the teacher also uses a progress chart to monitor his or her learners' progress quarterly based on class average. So ito po yung halimbawa ng progress chart. Kung makikita natin, bawat buwan po ay may nade-develop sa isang estudyante. Halimbawa dito, yung progress chart siya pero oral reading progress chart. So noong buwan po ng August, may marka ng red ang mga graph na ibig sabihin po ay cannot read anything. So hanggang sumapit na yung month ng September. So namarkahan na po siya ng violet na ibig sabihin dyan ay can read letters sounds. So sa pamamagitan po ng data na ito, makikita natin kung paano nagde-develop yung isang bata. So other ways of evaluating learner achievement, una dito ay yung item analysis. So it's a process which examines learner responses to individual test items in order to assess the quality of each item and of the test as a whole. So ang item analysis ay ginagamit upang suriin po yung mga tanong sa pagsusulit kung naaayon ba ito sa layunin ng pagtuturo at sa kakayahan po ng mga mag-aaral. So halimbawa nito, 'di ba yung dati sa ESL natin kay Sir Levy, may formula tayo kung paano nako-compute yung test item analysis. So halimbawa nito ay yung question number 20, 'di ba? 78 divided by 100 is equal to 0.78. So ibig sabihin, yung range of difficulty index niya ay easy. At para sa guro, maaari niya itong i-revise or i-discard. Pangalawa dito ay ang frequency table with mean score, standard deviation, and mean percentage. So, in addition to the item analysis, you may also measure learner achievement by using a frequency table for pre-test and post-test results. So, ang frequency table ay naglalaman ng mga datos ng mga resulta ng pagsusulit tulad ng average scores, standard deviation, at improvement percentage mula sa pre-test hanggang sa post-test. So, ito po ay ginagamit upang makita ang progreso ng mga mag-aaral. Halimbawa na lamang po, sa isang klase ng Filipino, nagbigay ang guro ng pre-test tungkol sa panitikan. Yung pre-test, ang mean score niya is 45%. So, yung post-test naman po, yung mean score niya is 80%. So, tumaas ang score ng mga mag-aaral ng 35% na nagpapakita ng progreso pagkatapos ng teaching intervention. So, ginagamit ito ng mga guro, yung frequency table, para tukuyin ang mga specific areas of improvement. Panghuli naman ay ang reflective practice through performance evaluation. So, the most concrete and obvious proof of teachers' teaching performance is student learning or student demonstration of the learning outcomes. So, ang reflective practice ay isang paraan ng pagsusuri sa sariling kakayahan ng guro sa pagtuturo gamit ang feedback mula sa mag-aaral, peers, at supervisors. So, sinusuri rin ng guro kung naabot ba ng mag-aaral ang kanilang learning outcomes. So, halimbawa po, isang guro sa science ang nagsagawa ng hands-on activity tungkol sa photosynthesis. So matapos ang lesson, nagbigay ng survey sa mga estudyante. At ayon sa kanyang natanggap na feedback, masyado raw mabilis ang discussion at kulang sa examples. So yung guro po ay gumawa ng self-evaluation at kinilala ang kanyang kahinaan sa time management. So gumamit siya ng mas detalyadong visual aids para sa susunod na lesson at binawasan ang dami ng topics na tinalakay. So nakipag-usap din siya sa kanyang mga kapwa-guro at supervisor upang humingi ng mga rekomendasyon. Siniguro din niya na mas naaangkop ang yung pacing at mas participative ang klase.
Good day everyone! I am Christine Guernato from Best at Filipino, and today our subtopic is all about the suggestions for the use of documents. So without further ado, let's start to learn! Number 1, plan monitoring and evaluation activities. So this involves designing a systematic approach to track and assess learners' progress and outcomes. So it means educators need to set clear objectives and schedule activities to monitor learning. So proper planning ensures that the assessment aligns with the learning goals and provides meaningful feedback for improvement. Number 2, monitor and evaluate learners' performance regularly and consistently. So it means continuous observation and assessment of learners' achievements over time. So regular monitoring helps in identifying strengths, weaknesses, and areas needing improvement. So, it now ensures that no learner is left behind and provides data to make timely interventions or adjustments in teaching strategies. So, ibig sabihin, hindi same lahat ng students, pero lahat sila is pwedeng matuto basta continuous lang lagi. So, next is 3. Explore varied monitoring and evaluation documents. So, utilize different tools and records to gather comprehensive data on learning performance. So, using diverse methods like tests, portfolios, and progress reports allows a broader understanding of student achievements. It is also catering to different learning styles and providing well-rounded evaluations. Number 4, validate monitoring and evaluation documents to ensure accuracy of learner attainment data. Check and confirm the reliability of collected data and assessment records. Ensuring accuracy prevents errors in reporting and decision-making. Validation also enhances the credibility of the evaluation process, benefiting both learners and educators. So, dapat lahat ng data or documents ay accurate or reliable. Hindi dapat basta-basta lang. Next, last, is involve the learners in certain types of monitoring and evaluation. Engage students in assessing their progress and performance. So, encouraging self-assessment and peer evaluation fosters responsibility, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of the learning objectives. So, this participatory approach also motivates students to take an active role in their learning journey. So, our next subtopic is about the other way of evaluating learning achievement. Students as evaluators, making students' evaluation meaningful. So, ibig sabihin nito, dapat ang mga estudyante, ina-assess din nila yung sarili nilang work or sa iba para mas maging makabuluhan at mas makatulong sa kanilang pag-aaral. For example, students can review their own progress on a project, identify that they did well, and find areas where they need to improve. Na makakatulong ito para mas maging aware sila sa kanilang kakayahan o sa kanilang mga kahinaan. When students evaluate their peers, they learn to give constructive feedback and see different ways to solve problems. It makes learning more interactive and helps students take ownership of their growth. Number 2, peer as evaluators, making peer evaluation of teaching work. So, this involves teachers or students evaluating the work of others to share ideas and improve teaching or learning practices. For teachers, it could mean observing a collage, lesson, and offering suggestions to make the teaching clearer or more engaging. For students, it might mean reviewing each other's group projects or assignments. Peer evaluation encourages collaboration, new perspectives, and mutual support. It helps both teachers and students improve by learning from each other in a supportive environment. Okay, let's go to our next subtopic, which is the how to make peer evaluation work. Number 1, support from administrators. So, administrators play a very important role in creating a supportive environment for teachers by recognizing teachers' expertise and encouraging their personal growth. Administrators empower them to act as role models and mentors for one another. So, supportive leadership involves facilitating opportunities for collaboration and professional development rather than dictating or micromanaging. Number 2, trust. Trust is very essential for open and honest communication, which forms the basis for productive relationships and self-reflection among educators. Without trust, teachers may feel hesitant to share ideas, admit challenges, or engage in self-evaluation. which can hinder growth and collaboration. So, mahalaga daw ang tiwala sa isa't isa. Kasi kapag wala yung foundation na trust, parang hindi kayo makakapag-ugnayan ng mabuti, ganyan. Or makakapag-share ng ideas, or parang magiging collab, parang ganyan. Parang magkakaroon ng barrier towards sa inyong dalawa. So, kailangan meron kayong trust sa isa't isa palagi. And number 3, time. Professional growth and collaboration require dictated time, often extending beyond regular school hours. This commitment ensures that teacher can engage in meaningful reflection, planning, and learning. While this investment demands extra effort, the resulting benefits such as improved teaching practices and stronger teamwork make it worthwhile. So, syempre, yung time ng isang teacher, di ba, lahat yun is bayad. Pero yung mga sa labas naman, yung mga extracurricular activities is hindi. Pero, parang nagsisilbi daw yon as their practice para mas ma-improve pa nila yung teaching nila, mga ganun. Or kaya teamwork and others. So, last is the voluntary. So, collaboration and professional development should be voluntary rather than mandated. If teachers feel forced to participate, it can erode trust and create resentment, undermining the effectiveness of the process. So, voluntary involvement ensures that teachers are motivated and engaged, leading to more meaningful and lasting outcomes. So, dapat kapag isa tayong teacher, kailangan we have the voluntary, ganyan. Dapat yung puso natin is kusa na tutulong, mga ganyan. Hindi dapat natin tinitinan to as, kailangan kasi, mandatory kasi kailangan kayang pumunta. Hindi dapat ganun. So, dapat kapag gusto natin yan, parang gusto dapat nating tumulong, dapat kusa yan, hindi pinipilit.